Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Wednesday. Sorry we weren't with you on Monday and Tuesday, but we're here today and we have an awesome show. We're going to hopefully start here. I think Sage Steele is going to join us shortly. I want to have a conversation about Donald Trump being interviewed live on the Pat McAfee Show. I want to talk about Donald Trump being interviewed from the booth during the Washington Commanders game this weekend, and what a great job Fox Sports did, and Kenny Albert did, and Jonathan Vilma did. So we're going to start there, and I want to play a couple of clips. Let's play SOT 1 and 2 to just give you a taste of Trump on McAfee Show, a taste of Trump on with Fox Sports during the NFL game. Play the clips.
Mr. President, why don't you drop an ooh-rah real quick?
I will. Hoorah!
Yes. Okay. We love everything about that. Let's.
You go way back with the sport of football. You played at New York Military Academy. How old were you when you started playing football, and what were some of the life lessons you took out of it?
Well, I did. I played tight end, but I mean, it was not quite football like this. It was a little bit easier. It wasn't so tough. And we had a quarterback who didn't have a very strong arm. I would say 10 yards was a long pass.
So you were never tackled by a guy like Jonathan
if I was
Vilma?
tackled by him, I would never forget it. We didn't get to play you too often, I can tell you that. But we had a good time, and I loved it. I actually love playing football. We had a good time with it.
So we were trying to look up your stats, and we wanted to know, how many touchdowns did you have back then?
Oh,
6,
is that right?
7?
I'm not sure I had any. I'm not sure. It's a long time ago. But
There you
no,
are.
but I did.
Uniform
Oh,
number,
wow.
Well,
uniform
there you
number
go.
85.
There you
Well,
go.
at least you realize that I never tell a lie, right? That's very good. I haven't seen that picture in a long time.
All right, so that was Donald Trump on FS1, or on, no, I'm sorry, Fox Sports, not FS1. And I think between his appearance on Fox Sports and his appearance on ESPN, something has clearly changed. I don't know if it's Donald Trump. I don't know if it's the mainstream media. Something has clearly changed. We'll have that conversation with TJ Moe and Jon Root and Steve Kim. Hopefully we'll have Sage Steele any moment now. Sage, I think, Sage, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us. Sage, you worked at ESPN. You had a chance, I believe, to interview Donald Trump at some point. We're told you couldn't do it. Are you shocked that we're now here where he can be on the Pat McAfee Show?
No, because it's the Pat McAfee Show, period. If it were Pat McAfee or Stephen A. Smith, to me, that's the only way it happens, Jason. That is completely different. Those two men have completely different rules than anyone else at the company. And what Pat McAfee wants, Pat McAfee gets. And I like it. So have things changed in many ways? Yes. I mean, I don't want to give them too much credit because deep down, you're still led by Bob Iger at the top, and that's a trickle-down effect everywhere. But I do hope that Jimmy Pitaro and everyone else are finally paying attention to actually the demographics and the numbers of people who watch college football, for instance, which probably leaned right, if not even further, but definitely they're more conservative of a fan base, college football. So are they actually doing their homework and finally doing the right thing? I don't think all of a sudden that's happening. I think it's because it's Pat McAfee. And hi guys, it's Veterans Day. Like, give me a break. It is the commander-in-chief. It only makes sense. So do I expect them to all of a sudden start to truly support women's sports and do all those other basic things? No. But for this one day, it was the right thing, obviously. But I don't want to go too far and say that they've changed.
Well, how about this? Have you considered that, like, their brand is in the tank right now, ESPN's?
Yeah.
They're getting slaughtered by this YouTube dispute. When I see some alpha announcing saying ESPN's perceptions at an all-time low, could that be driving the decision making?
Sure. Sure. And again, if they're smart, they're doing that homework and listening and reading the probably millions of comments at this point because of the dispute with YouTube and going, gosh, guys, maybe we need to soften a little bit. Maybe we need to use some common sense and not just stick to what we've always done because that's what we've done and we don't want to admit that we're wrong. Maybe it's a confluence of errors at this point and the timing is beautiful such that it worked out that on Veterans Day, when we're honoring our country, and those who have given so much for us to be able to talk like this, that this wouldn't be a really bad thing. It was just, I mean, can you imagine it happening on SportsCenter though, Jason? Like, no, that's to
They don't
me.
have the right host for,
Correct.
L. Duncan interviewing Donald Trump. I don't think
No,
that's going to go
she
well.
would throw a tantrum, and everyone else would throw a tantrum, even though it was fine to have Barack Obama on for 8 straight years doing the NCAA tournament picks every March for them to go to the White House to do that. It was fine for me to interview Joe Biden live on SportsCenter in 2021, right after he took office. Yes, I was supposed to have interviewed Donald Trump back in 2020 when COVID was running rampant, of course, and college football was coming back, thanks in part massive part, I'd say primarily because of the work of Donald Trump during that time, working with the colleges and the universities and the athletic directors and even talking to players. And if you remember, Justin Fields and Donald Trump were tight at that point, relatively speaking, trying to convince the forces to bring college football back. And then I was supposed to go to the White House and interview him. And at the last second, they nixed that. So between me and Paul Feinbaum, there's been a couple of opportunities that they said, no, not happening. So
when you say they nixed that, was that in a meeting with you? Who is they? Is that Jimmy Pitaro? Is it Norby Williamson? Is it Dave Roberts? Who's they?
Well, do you remember Rob King?
Yeah, of course I remember Rob King.
He got fired, I believe, for some inappropriate stuff,
Yes.
whatever. I didn't even ask. I don't care. But he was a longtime executive, Black executive there who was let go like overnight. He is a boss. And that was Norby, I assume, or was Rob at that point on equal footing
Rob
with
was
Norby?
probably on equal terms at that point with Norby. Yeah.
And then, but everybody answering to Jimmy Pitaro. So I never heard directly from Jimmy Pitaro, despite our very good relationship at the time. But that was Rob King. And I was like, excuse me? Wait, we've been planning this for weeks, going through all the testing protocol that will happen when we go into the White House, et cetera. And they were going to give us complete access, 30 minutes straight. They say, you keep the tapes, so to speak. You ask whatever you want, because it was also going to be a discussion about at the time, the bubble that had just, I guess, was it underway?
The NBA bubble you're talking about?
In Orlando, yeah. So it was
Yeah.
about that whole process and how trying to bring sports back. And they're like, ask whatever you want, even non-sports things. 30 minutes, one-on-one, Donald Trump. It was either going to be in the Oval Office or the Rose Garden, depending on the weather. And we were on the way. There was a crew of 10. And then I got the call. So, the hypocrisy in it was really, really thick, especially because, like, I'm not even going to talk politics. I'm a sportscaster. The country wanted to know what was going to happen. What is college sports coming back? And the man that has a huge effect on that, influence on that, was saying, hey, come on in. Let's talk about this. And doesn't that directly affect ESPN's bottom line? If sports, in particular college football, is back. So this was a great opportunity to do it. And he was giving us the exclusive. Instead, Dave Portnoy ended up going when I was instructed to pull away and cancel it. So yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that was 5 years ago now. That, by the way, I'm pretty sure is the reason why I got the Joe Biden interview a few months later, is to try to, I think it was a makeup call there, which was a little bit different for sure. But anyway, they've come a long way. I want to say, yes, let's give credit where credit's due. They let it happen. But there's no way that's happening, I don't believe, on any other program except with Pat McAfee, who's not on the Bristol campus, who's not following anyone's orders. He does whatever the hell he wants. And thank goodness for Pat McAfee.
You make an interesting point that is kind of inside baseball, but I think listeners, viewers would find it interesting. There is a difference when you do a satellite show away from Bristol. Pardon the interruption, is in Washington, D.C. Eric Rideholm and that group started all of that. And they have an independence from ESPN that really grates at the ESPN power structure. That's why, despite it being its highest rated show for 20 plus years, they promote First Take and pretend as if that's their number one show because it's right there in Bristol, more under their control. And so if Pat McAfee were based in Bristol, you think it would have been harder or maybe impossible to do that Trump interview?
No, I mean, there's always more control when you're right there. But again, that said, this is McAfee. This is Pat McAfee, who dropped the name Norby Williamson and called him a rat, and then doubled down and did it again on his show on ESPN and was not punished, and actually had Burke Magnus, Norby's replacement, come and do a selfie with him on the field and Burke let that happen after Pat on air ripped the number 2 ranked executive at ESPN, and there were no repercussions. I remember texting him at the time because I was gone. I was like, oh my gosh, what has happened? Unfortunately, it's sad. Norby changed and Pat was speaking for a lot of people. But for that to happen and there be no, whether everybody agrees or not, when you rip an executive, name drop and call him names and nothing happens, you know that you have full control. I want you to picture this. I want you to picture McAfee calling Burke or Jimmy and saying, listen, White House just called, or I have a contact there, and they said I could have Trump on Veterans Day. Cool? And they said no? Can you imagine them telling him no? Like, that's not happening. It's impossible. And Pat knows that. And he did right. There's just no way in hell that happens, that they tell Pat no about anything. Look at how Pat has been so vocal, critical about this fight between ESPN, Disney, and YouTube. He's saying whatever he wants. That man has no rules. And I think it's hysterical because I'm picturing being a fly on the wall, watching the executives melt down as this interview happened yesterday, but they could not tell him no.
ESPN needs that. And they need someone that's outside their control. And again, it's not that I can endorse everything that Pat McAfee does, but maybe there's some intent here by someone, maybe Jimmy Pitaro, I don't know, by someone that wants Pat McAfee to kick over the tables and overturn the apple cart. And because this is, again, where I say Pat is lucky. He's based in Indianapolis, doesn't have to be anywhere near Bristol. I'll never forget when I came back to launch the Undefeated. They had me meeting with so many different special interest groups. I mean, here, you got to meet with the black employees. You got to meet with the gay employees. You got to meet with this group and that group. And I was like, nah, man, I'm just here to run the Undefeated. Well, you got to make peace with all these people. And it undercuts you. You can't get anything accomplished. Pat being independent and coming there, Bill Simmons must be rolling over in his office thinking about, man, they thought I was uncontrollable. Look at Pat.
You're right. Oh my gosh, that was a whole different thing. Wait till the book comes out on my time on NBA Countdown with him. My Lord. Here's the other part that we need to consider strategically. This allows them to say, see, we're not that bad. Look what we let McAfee do. Let McAfee do. So this helps them, in their minds probably, balance things out a little bit, right? And say, yeah, we might be woke and idiots on pretty much every single topic, but we have McAfee over here talking to Donald Trump. So see, we're not that bad. They're using, they're not going to say no, number one, and it helps them to be able to use this.
They got a little interesting feud between, I believe, McAfee and Stephen A. Smith, but more and more, I think maybe they're kind of on the same side because Stephen A. Smith has gone after Jasmine Crockett and, says some things that leftists aren't supposed to say.
When he goes on, he and Sean Hannity are like best friends. Sean told me that. So when he goes on, it's not just CNN, political. When he goes on Fox News consistently with Hannity, and Jesse and whoever else he goes on with, even Laura Ingraham, even Megyn Kelly. Like so yeah, this is another step though to have the president on. And I think Stephen A said he would have wanted him on, but it hasn't happened for some reason. So this it just doesn't surprise me at all because of who the characters are.
My thought though is because Stephen A loves to be a both sides guy.
He does.
He's gonna have to do something to counter, and I don't know if he'll fly out Louis Farrakhan to have him on First Take, or I don't. He's got to do something to appeal. Michelle Obama will be on his show shortly. Something has to happen.
So she can complain about, makeup and hair and what is it? Rare is the woman who can survive off the rack, which means, no, I need custom clothes. So that'll be a fascinating interview. I can't wait to, sorry.
All right. How much blowback do you think from the internal groups? And again, Pat McAfee may never hear about it, but he is taking some criticism.
Yeah.
The ESPN's probably in total upheaval. Keith Olbermann, I don't know, he's not at ESPN, but he tweeted out, how dare you have on someone like Donald Trump and, all of it. Who obviously ESPN needs Donald Trump more than Trump needs ESPN. Would you not agree?
Yeah, 100%. But here's what I think is happening behind closed doors. They don't like it, but they know that they have no choice, and it's McAfee. And if their complaining gets out, McAfee will crush them publicly too. And then it'll get even bigger. So the people who disagree are probably like, let's just keep it in our tight little circle. Like we used to have to as conservatives. We used to like literally whisper in the corner or send text messages to making sure no one else was around. But they're saying, just complain quietly within us, because if McAfee gets a hold of that and names, you think he's going to hold back after he called out Norby and called him a rat? Like he owns the place right now. And I love it again.
Can he survive long term? Will he be there 2 years from now?
When he first came, a lot of us were talking about that. Is this going to last? Are they going to be able to contain him? Will it? I mean, again, Pat McAfee doesn't need ESPN. ESPN needs Pat McAfee. And he can take his show and all that comes with it, and it's a lot. I mean, he fills programming during the day, every single day. And then it benefits ESPN as he's streaming later as well. And look at him on College Game Day. They need him. They can't say a word. Is he there in 2 years? If he wants to be. They're already, I think, at the time of the deal, I mean, he's making $18 million a year. I don't know how that's dispersed between his team, et cetera. Now Stephen A's a little more than that. Like, who knows what else comes in on the side. He will be there if he wants to be, but he can go and continue to grow this empire away from ESPN if they mess with him.
You know what? That may be the real takeaway from all of this, is that Pat McAfee is much more powerful at ESPN than Stephen A. Smith. And I know Stephen A. has the contract, and I know he has some sort of race leverage over these leftists at ESPN. But I think they would let Stephen A. Smith go well before they would let Pat McAfee go. I think McAfee has real value.
I'd have to really think about that and break that down. I mean, he's had the Stephen A. rules for a very, very long time. And I know your feelings about Stephen A. I no matter what, he's probably the hardest working person that I was around at ESPN for 16 and a half years. And he is still owned by them with First Take, but he's brilliant in many ways and has convinced them. Do you notice if you watch First Take, which I haven't, even when I was there, I wasn't watching it, but you see a clip and at the bottom of the screen, it's promoting Stephen A's YouTube show. On the bottom of the First Take screen, that it's not, ESPN doesn't own that. ESPN isn't getting a penny from Stephen A's YouTube show, I don't believe, right? So he convinced them to promote his show that he's making a whole other income off of on ESPN platform. Like, he's got so much power in very many unique ways as well. So I don't know, because they're different. They're very different, right? And Stephen A does represent more of the the woke culture in many ways because of some of his comments while trying to balance that out. And Pat McAfee, he's not political, but he kind of just speaks the truth. To your point about what does he do to counter this? You're right. He's a competitive guy. He might, come up with another big name guest on his own. But the difference is that his show isn't airing on ESPN airwaves like Pat McAfee's is. So it's very separate. ESPN can separate themselves from Stephen A.
You're talking about his YouTube show. I think on First Take, he's got to bring Michelle Obama or someone on.
That's not going to resonate. I mean, is she relevant now? She's trying to be.
Well, I'm trying to think. He's got to bring Gavin Newsom on, or he's got, maybe he's got to host Drag Queen Story Hour on his show. I don't. He's got to do something. I don't even know. Maybe. I mean, this would be. Maybe he'll bring on Nick Fuentes and have a combative interview with Nick Fuentes.
Stop it. No,
he's got to do something.
He's too smart of a person to do that.
He's got to do something. Anyway, Sage, thank you for taking the time this morning. We really appreciate it. I'm going to let you go. I know you're in California.
I woke up. I showered for you. It's good to see you guys.
Is your husband watching?
No, he just left because he shakes his head when I start going like this. He's like, I'm out. So.
Thank you, Sage. All right. And we want to make sure that we thank our primary sponsor, Preborn. You guys know how I feel, how we feel about Preborn. It's the best organization supporting our worldview that life begins at conception. And they do this by providing expectant mothers an ultrasound. An expectant mother that's considering abortion, they provide her an ultrasound. They introduce that baby's heartbeat. They introduce an image of the baby to the mother. Now she's twice as likely to choose life, and that's when Preborn really steps in and steps up. They support the woman and the child for up to 2 years, get her through the process of having a baby and get her and the baby started in life. They do it because we support Preborn with our dollars. It's just $28 for every ultrasound. Whether you give monthly, whether you make one-time donations, every $28 helps us and helps Preborn save a baby's life. Preborn has saved nearly 300,000 babies' lives since its inception. I've introduced you guys to Dan Steiner, the founder of Preborn. I've had Dan to my house. We've had him at Roll Call. We've had him everywhere. We know that our money actually pays for ultrasounds and actually supports that mother and child. It's not spent on a bunch of high-priced executives. 2 ways to give. On your smartphone, dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby. Or give the way I prefer to give, preborn.com/fearless. Are these guys ready to roll? Let's keep rolling. Let's bring in Steve Kim, TJ Moe, Jon Root. Want you guys to react to some of the conversation I just had with Sage Steele. Steve, I'll start with you. How shocked were you that Pat McAfee had on President Trump?
Not at all. He's an island unto himself. He's his own safety net. That is the reality. I remember when I was at ESPN and I was just a lowly boxing writer. If I wanted to go on another person's show, no matter who it was, I had to get permission from my editor who ran it up the chain, right? I think McAfee probably deals with his own rules. It's one simple one. Can I get him on and do I want him on? I think it's really that simple. Maybe everyone else has to go through different channels, get approval. Here's the difference between McAfee and just about everybody else. Maybe Stephen A. is under this umbrella. He is the one guy that if he parted ways with ESPN right now, he's his own franchise. He can go out on his own, go back to what he was doing, and still make a very lucrative living.
John, were you surprised President Trump was on with Pat McAfee?
No, Pat McAfee's probably been the most patriotic guy that we've seen at ESPN, maybe ever. He was wearing red, white, and blue after Charlie was assassinated. He was talking about that College Game Day when he was talking to President Trump yesterday, how sports are the ultimate unifier. And I mean, he threw shade at people that were trying to throw shade at him. It's like, you guys are going to get upset. It's Veterans Day. I'm talking to the commander-in-chief, like basically just drowning your own tears and suck it up. And it's great. Sage is spot on. Pat McAfee can do what Pat McAfee wants. He can absolutely dog on the executives there when it comes to the Disney and YouTube TV deal that hasn't been struck. He makes fun of other hosts that are trying to say that Caitlin Clark is popular because she's white. I mean, he's on fire. Pat McAfee can do what Pat McAfee wants. He can interview who he wants to interview, whether it's Trump, Aaron Rodgers, whoever. I love to see it, and it makes me want to tune into ESPN because that's the only show outside of sports games I want to watch.
TJ, I'm going to ask you a different question. This is where I disagreed with Sage. I think Pat McAfee is 10 times more powerful, and I mean that in all seriousness, than Stephen A. Smith. I think he's irreplaceable in a way that Stephen A. Smith simply is not. Am I crazy for that?
No, I don't think you're crazy. But I do think Stephen A. has a lot of power over there. I don't think anybody would dispute that. So, and certainly he acts like he has a lot of power over there, right?
Let me reframe, because I used the wrong word then, powerful. I think he's 10 times more valuable than Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, I think there's no question about that. However, and some of this is not necessarily up to him. People have made Stephen A. really relevant. Sage just named all the people that have him on all the time. Megyn Kelly and all the guys at Fox, Hannity and whoever else. So he is a little bit of everywhere. Bill Maher has him on. And so at some point, there's some value in having a guy who is everywhere. Now, the difference, I would say, is Pat McAfee is still more relevant without any help at all. Where do you see Pat McAfee except for on the Pat McAfee Show on game day? That's it. You see him on now ESPN platforms or whatever. But it's like Pat McAfee's not going on with Bill Maher. And Pat McAfee's never on Fox or anybody else. Nobody's having to make him relevant. And that is the ultimate trump card, right? And that's why he doesn't need anybody else. And I think that part of that is, and that's what your point, but that was Sage's point too, right? ESPN needs Pat McAfee so much more than Pat McAfee needs ESPN. So he plays by a totally different set of rules.
Steve, I think Pat McAfee far more valuable than Stephen A. Smith, and that's not a pot shot. I think it's an indication like his YouTube numbers are real, and he draws a massive audience on YouTube without any assistance from ESPN, and they don't have anybody else that can do that. I think First Take could survive without Stephen A. Smith. It's a difference. They average 450,000 viewers right now, and maybe they drop down to 375 if Stephen A. disappears. I just don't. But if McAfee were to leave, they got no one that has traction with young people and on YouTube the way he does.
Well, to expound upon what TJ said, and I agree with him, who is the one guy that needs ESPN more out of the two to raise their profile more? I believe that'd be Stephen A. Smith. Now, Stephen A. Smith, for the better part of about 25 years, for the most part, that has been his main employer, in many ways his identity. Pat McAfee, as of 2 years ago, his identity was being Pat McAfee. So if you really think about it, so let's say both of them had ESPN cut out of their lives, who would be able to keep up their profile and their influence more without that 4-letter network? I would bet it's McAfee because he's had to do it longer and he's more associated with being independent. I think it's interesting how Stephen A. will react. The problem I have with Stephen A., here's the difference. Pat McAfee will take a stand and he'll say, this is my stand. I don't care if you like it. The problem is, if Stephen A. Smith had the guts to actually interview Trump, the problem is for the next 2 months, he'd find small little ways to backtrack from it and to do makeup calls all throughout to pander to the other side. I think that's the main difference between those two.
John, I'm going to throw this in your lap. The main difference, and again, I know everybody thinks I have this incredible Stephen A. bias, and maybe I do, but it makes me bend over backwards to be more objective. And so Stephen A. Smith does not say interesting things. He says dumb things that people react to. He criticizes people inappropriately based on race and things like that. He's not that interesting. If you remove ESPN from Stephen A. Smith, he's just not an interesting person. He's someone you're more apt to laugh at and think, is that person a caricature? Is that a real person? Whereas Pat McAfee says some interesting things, has a persona that's likable. Young men are attracted to his irreverence and all that. I just think there's very little substance to Stephen A. Smith, and if you remove those 4 letters, he's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what he says doesn't make sense, kind of like his points per game average in college that you've talked about a few times, Jason.
Yeah.
But with him, like, he has this whole, like, Trump is coming and this is what's going on. And it's just pushing you to his podcast. He's just grifting. He's just like your atypical YouTube star that's going to give you a few nuggets here and there, half a point there, half a truth there. And it's like, well, if you want to hear the whole thing, you got to go to my podcast. And who makes things more political than Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Clark? You know, I mean, everyone's getting so upset about Pat McAfee, you know, making things political. And, you know, Sage touched on that. I know TJ and Kim, like, you know, all you guys have touched on it over and over and over again. There's a left-wing bias over here. So anytime someone has just a simple conversation on Veterans Day, we're supposed to get up in arms about it. But Stephen A. Smith, you know, he's going to play both sides. He does a great job playing both sides. ESPN's going to allow him to play both sides. And I just wish there would be people that would call it both ways. If Ryan Clark is essentially going to call Charlie Kirk a racist, and that's why there shouldn't be a statue on LSU's campus, you know, at least call that out. If you don't like Trump, whatever. But, man, if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have standards at all.
TJ, let me ask you this. We were debating this morning, and Steve and John, I'll ask you guys to chime in on this as well, but we'll start with TJ. Has the media environment around Trump changed? He's on Fox Sports in the middle of a football, NFL game, and now he's on ESPN. He's being treated like a human being by the mainstream sports media. Is this an indication that the mainstream media has moved, or is this an indication that Trump perhaps has moved to be a more tolerable version of Trump for the left?
I think Trump's the same guy he's always been. And I don't think Trump is changing. Certainly not at this point in his life. He's almost 80 years old. 80-year-olds don't change. What I would say, though, and I was looking at some of this stuff earlier, and this doesn't totally pertain to your question, but it kind of does. So I just want to go through it for a second. ESPN desperately needed this. You brought this up with Sage. This YouTube dispute is going so poorly for them. They needed something to cling to for people to like for a change. Okay. Fox probably applied a little bit of pressure as well, to the degree that ESPN even had to sign off on this. You know, Sage contends that they had no choice. But if they had a choice, Fox probably put some pressure on them over those, it's 3 days before or whatever. Okay, they have Ryan Clark, who has to apologize about once a month for being an open woke racist. All right. Stephen A. Smith has done an obvious pivot towards more of a centrist position and things that he says about Donald Trump. He's clearly pivoted. Okay. They canceled Around the Horn, which was the most woke program on the network. They had Paul Feinbaum go on Outkick, which I think a lot of people are banned from going out on Outkick at all. He went on there, said he voted for Donald Trump, had an opportunity to interview him. ESPN said no, and that he might run for Senate as a Republican. And they silently suspended him for a couple days, never said anything about it, and he was right back on air. All right. And then don't forget, they played, ESPN did, a Trump message at the college football playoff championship. So this is not the first time they've had Trump on messaging on their platform. Now, they didn't have him on to interview him, but during halftime, they did have the message on. So this isn't just a sudden pivot. There has been a year-long, since Trump won the election, we've seen a lot of things moving this direction. And, you know, the Feinbaum thing, you could call the McAfee effect to some degree if you want to, and just say people are going to start stepping out of line as they watch him step out of line. But I think there's been a movement to say we can't keep playing this game. The country's changed their mind about Trump in a way, and we're losing.
So you just argued that the media has changed a little bit. And
Yes.
John and Steve, I'm coming to you, but John, what do you think here? Has Trump changed it all, or has the media landscape changed around him?
Well, I mean, the customer, you got to think of the customer the entire time. Like, they ended up changing their rules for kneeling on the field to try to cater to a lot of these players on the woke left and BLM, and then got to a place where we're like, well, we're kind of hurting our consumer base, the people that are viewing our product. So they had to backtrack after that. And then they're finally realizing, oh, like maybe a lot of our players are actually pretty conservative. The people viewing our product are pretty conservative. We're promoting someone like Bad Bunny, and obviously Roger Goodell in the NFL is doubling down. And then they realize maybe we should have Trump on there, have both sides. And ESPN, I think, is realizing over and over that they really need to actually cater to the conservative audience at times. You know, they're going to have their left-wing bias consistently, but the consumer is telling them over and over and over again, we are conservative, we are Christian, and we're sick and tired of the left-wing bias and political propaganda. And if you give us little bits of Trump, a little bit of McAfee, we might be coming back.
Steve, who's changing here?
Oh, what happened? I know what happened. November 5th happened. Great day for America. The American public spoke. I mean, John talks about the consumer. Well, look, I don't know if you want to call it a landslide, but if you go back to that great day in American history, Donald Trump won all 7 swing states. He won the majority of the vote. It was by the way they count up the votes, it was kind of a landslide. So a lot of these media entities and individual media members, they're very cowardly in their own way, in a sense that they love the consensus because there's safety in going with the mob. Now, maybe in 2020 and 21, I think a lot of these guys, I saw it firsthand, were forced to say things and do gestures that they did not mean because they did not want to be put into the crosshairs. So we go back to last November when the American public spoke and they said, we're not doing this anymore. Okay, and I don't know what's going to happen in 2028. That's still a ways out. The American public, they spoke. They said, hey, look, Trump may have his flaws, but he's a much better candidate, and he's actually much more acceptable than the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris.
I hope y'all are right. And you got to understand, I'm the weird Trump voter that all I cared about, once the guy let out the people on January 6th, I was like, oh, okay, my vote was worth it. I'm looking at people complain. I was looking this morning at people complain about, well, he's not really MAGA. He didn't do this. He didn't release the Epstein files. They got this whole laundry list of things that make me think like, okay, maybe the people on the left are satisfied with Trump light. Go ahead.
Jason, here's my rebuttal. It's better than Kamala Harris and the Democrats. It's that simple. Anyone that thinks a president has to do everything you want, okay? It's like a football coach. Was Nick Saban good at Alabama? Right. But if you want to focus on the kick six or a game that he lost in a year that he lost one game, no one's perfect. I actually think it's adolescent, it's immature for any voter to say, well, I love 99 of his policies, but that one really sticks out. Guys, I know what I'm voting for, and I'm voting for a guy that's not going to have every single one of my interests aligned with his. Get over it. At the end of the day,
their argument, Steve, their pushback would be, it's not what I want, it's what he promised us that we didn't get. That's what their argument would be.
Okay, and you know what? And it's still better than the promises Kamala made. I know people are going to, look, I almost would vote for anyone before Kamala Harris. Honestly. And you know,
I would.
You know what also strengthens Trump's popularity? When you hear these interviews now with Kamala Harris and John, that cringy lady, the one that was the secretary of that House Speaker, the Joe Biden mouthpiece. That lady that was lesbian.
Pierre or whatever.
Yeah, cringe. Yeah, cringy Pierre. That right there, every time I hear it, I go, wow. Wow, we dodged a bullet. So, yeah, Trump is not perfect. He's better than the alternative. Get over it.
And I'll let you guys have a final say if you have one. If not, I can move on to it. We got to be quick here, though. Very quick.
The only thing I'd say, Jason, is just people are upset that Trump wasn't quite as radical as they hoped he'd be. Okay, but he's the only one in the galaxy that even gave you a chance of doing the things that he did. Do we think Mitt Romney or John McCain or George W. Bush would have promised any of this stuff? So in the first term, we said Donald Trump is a man of his word. Okay, he kept virtually every single one of his promises. And to the degree that he's not this time, it's only a couple of things, right? People are really upset about the H-1B visas. People are really upset about the Epstein files. They're upset about the 600,000 Chinese college students or whatever. But it's not like there's this huge laundry list of things. People are really, really upset, primarily about two things, honestly, Jason. Israel, okay, because we know the different factions now in MAGA with how they view Israel, and the Epstein files. Which, by the way, there's news out today. These Epstein files may be coming out. I think it was the Democrats this morning released some emails, one from Jeffrey Epstein that was saying that Trump spent time at his house, knew some of the victims, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But anyway, Trump's going to be forced to do this now. A lot of this will take care of itself. But again, just to reinforce what I'm saying, Trump made radical promises. He hasn't kept every single one, and people are upset. But that is infinitely better than the people who don't make any radical promises.
Guys, I got to go. I got to take care of some sponsors. TJ and Steve Kim will be back. We're going to broaden the conversation. But if you're suffering from poor sleep, low energy, stiff joints, shifts perhaps in your blood work, as you age, you need to protect your cells. If not, your body will deteriorate. That's why I want to tell you about Fatty 15, a breakthrough supplement featuring C15, the first new essential fatty acid discovered in more than 90 years. More than 100 studies show that C15 strengthens cells, slows biological aging, and protects against something called cellular fragility syndrome. Without enough C15, cells become fragile and break down faster. Fatty 15 delivers pure, bioavailable C15 to repair cell damage, protect against future breakdown, and support critical functions like sleep regulation, brain health, liver function, and joint health. In fact, 72% of users report benefits within 16 weeks, from deeper sleep to healthier skin, hair, and nails. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/fearless and using the promo code FEARLESS at checkout. Fatty 15, thank you so much for supporting today's show. You guys support the organizations and the products that support us. Fatty 15. All right, let's bring back Steve Kim and TJ Moe, and let's continue the conversation with Stephen A. Smith. We're still on the Stephen A. Smith topic. He and Michelle Beadle are kind of at each other's throats. Let's play SOT 4. I think Michelle Beadle. No, should we start with Michelle Beadle? Yeah, let's start with Michelle Beadle attacking. Let's play SOT number 6. This is her talking about Stephen A. Smith.
So instead of he doubles down and he does this. If I'm ESPN, and I get it. You created this monster. He is bigger than you now. And that's exactly your fault and your fault only. You let him run rampant all over that company and put his face on for everybody who's like, oh, he works so hard. I'm going to let you in on a little behind the scenes. He wants to do that. Nobody's asking him.
He's desperate to do it.
He shows up. I told everyone I worked with, I will never share a set with that person, ever, because I don't respect him, and life's too short. The morning of my last day on Get Up, as Greenie was giving me a heartfelt goodbye, and I awkwardly sat there, as I was leaving the set, they started a promo that Stephen A. Smith will be on the show tomorrow. Like, it is him. So let's stop acting like the guy gets worked to death. It's him.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's hear SOT 4, Stephen A. Smith, responding to Michelle Beadle.
I don't know this woman at all. So when you hear her talking about me, please understand, I don't know her. I have no relationship with her. She says I don't like her. How would you know? It has to be because of how you're acting, Michelle Beadle. It can't be because of me. Because I don't talk to you. I don't know you. I don't talk to you. I've never been around you. We've never had a conversation. We've never hung out with one another. Nothing. We have no relationship. I can sit up here right now, walk outside to the bathroom, pass somebody in a hallway, talk to them for 2 minutes, and that would be more extensive than any communication I have had with Michelle Beadle in all these years.
She's replaying the whole Ray Rice situation and her battles with Stephen A. She's doing a little clout chasing. I actually kind of side with Stephen A. Smith here. Steve, you disagree?
Is that Michelle Beadle or Michelle Bitter? Good grief. This is what I remember about her at the end. She was incredibly toxic. She flat out said, I'm not watching football. All right, so if you're on ESPN, you don't want to watch football, which is about 80% of every sports network's discussion and dialogue. What good are you? And I think, I don't know. We don't defend Stephen A. Smith a lot here. I know you don't. I'm kind of with you. I tend to believe Stephen A. I believe that Michelle Beadle is very, very regret-filled in terms of how she dealt with her departure, her decision to leave ESPN, and that Stephen A. Smith, say what you want, has become a titan at that network. She may hate what he said about Ray Rice, and maybe Stephen A. represents something to her that she finds unpalatable, but when it's all said and done, Michelle Beadle, I think she took the wrong path, and now she's regretful.
TJ?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, Stephen A. chose perhaps the least flattering photo of Michelle Beadle I've ever seen there. She's 50 years old. I think she looked 80 years old in that picture, and he kept it on screen for a very long time intentionally. And so that's number one. Number two, the stuff she said even there in just that small snippet is just so absurd. I will never share a set with that man. Life is too short. Oh, life is too short to speak to somebody on an entertainment show? Life's too short for that? By the way, it's not just your show. Greeny was on that show. Jalen Rose was on that show. You know, it was a show when, according to your own network, he at that time was the most popular guy on the show, according to them, whether we agree with that or not. And so, yeah, this spat, she's trying to stay relevant. When was the last time you heard Michelle Beadle's name before she criticized Stephen A. Smith?
It's been a while. I've never seen anything how likable Michelle Beadle was and then how unlikable she became. She had a sense of humor. You could joke with her. She was like, hey, let's have a beer. Hey, let's watch the game together. She's the one woman I can watch the game with. That's who she was. And then she got so filled with the power and the butt kissing that went on at ESPN, she just started taking herself way too seriously and drawing lines in the sand. You know, I can't work with this person, can't work with that person. And I get it. There are people that, because I've been in that position in terms of, like, there were women I didn't want to work with. I've been clear about that because, you know, I didn't think they brought any value and I thought they were there for other purposes. Look, I was someone that, you know, Fox Sports wanted me to work with Nick Wright, and I didn't want to deal with his disingenuous racial stuff. The guy's a white Jewish guy that thinks he's black, and I didn't want to deal with it, and wanted to put me in all kinds of conversation. He knock off Max Kellerman is what he is, but I don't know if he claims his Jewishness, but he looks real Jewish to me. But I could be wrong, but he was just some white guy that wanted to be black, and I didn't want anything to do with it. And so I kind of get where she's coming from, but again, when he's talking about Nick Wright or Joy Taylor or some of these people, it's not like, hey, the biggest star at the network or the person the network's most invested in, I won't go on camera with them. That's a recipe for your own destruction. Let me play Cari Champion, who also went after Stephen A. Smith. Let's play SOT 7.
Stephen A. I played that Michelle Beadle clip for one reason and one reason only. I'm old enough to remember being on that show and getting in trouble based on some comments you said about women and whether or not they should know their place when it comes to abuse or non-abuse. Ray Rice comes to mind. Not going to get into the details of all of that. But Beadle just came for you yet again, like she did when I worked at ESPN. I wonder, do you have that same smoke for her that you have for Jasmine Crockett, that you have for Michelle Obama, that you sometimes display for me and Jamel Hill? Do you have that same smoke? I'm sick of it. Keep the same energy. And I call you and I root for you and I say, hey, I got your back. I'm happy for you. But you keep that same energy, sir, for everybody.
Keep that same energy. Keep that same
Smoke.
energy.
Smoke.
Let's play Stephen A. Smith's response before we chime in.
I've shown you nothing but love. What are you talking about? You were hired at First Take in large part because of me. You stayed as long as you stayed and had the support of the people that supported you because of me. Do I need to get bosses to confirm that I'm telling the truth? You know I can. When we see the diverse people that come on First Take, black people, women, the list goes on and on. Who did that? That wasn't happening when Skip was there. That was me. What are you talking about? When have I spoken against you? When have I thrown shade against you? When did that happen? That is a lie. Me, dogging Cari Champion? When? And if I did it, why did you call me and root for me? What are you sick of? Or did you just want the attention? And Cari Champion, you were at the Tennis Channel. And I brought you over to ESPN. Not just me. Had to get approval. Had to get Skip Bayless support because he was the number one guy. Who you think did it? Who you think did it? I can get into a whole bunch of details that surrounded you not necessarily ending up there. If Skip had his way or somebody else had their way, it was me that stopped that. It was me that stopped that.
Once again, I somewhat side with Stephen A., but I also just think he thinks there's some sort of unity along racial lines. That black people, we're all going to get along together and there's some unity. And I'm like, brother, have you looked at the Crips and the Bloods? Have you looked at the divorce rate between black men and black women? Have you looked at so this racial unity is some fantasy land. And then the other thing is he's lived too long to not realize that Cari Champion, Michelle Beadle, these are all feminists. And feminists have no interest in long-term unity or support of men. His alleged friendship, he doesn't know who his friends are. Cari Champion will never be his friend. The only way she would pretend to be his friend is if she had complete control of him. Stephen A. just sounds naive here, although I do side with him. You know, Cari Champion benefited from Stephen A. Smith, got full of herself, exited ESPN, and now real life has hit her. And I'm sure some people are sitting there going, Molly Karam's about to experience the same thing. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, I think there's a common theme here. Bitter ex-employee who made a decision to leave the network or is no longer on the network, sees Stephen A. Smith and quite frankly, may regret their decision, and there's a lot of bitterness. Now, here's the other thing. You talk about friendship. The thing I want to get into is you being an ally. I think that is the most exploitative term and label you can say, because if you're an ally, that basically means you have to sign off and agree with every single thing I think, and you have to believe every single thing that I approve of. Cari Champion to me comes off as incredibly bitter. I'm completely on Stephen A's side. And it goes to show you, most people in the world today, they want you to do well, but they don't want you to do too well. They certainly don't want you to do better than they're doing, right? So Cari Champion, I guess she's anchored down with Jamel Hill. Good luck with that. Ask Michael Smith what that did to his career.
Great.
I mean, seriously. Cari, while you can, get a lifeboat, because you're heading right into in fact, you're already sunk, but get a lifeboat anyway. Because, look, you still have your looks for the most part. Just seriously, get a lifeboat and see if you can rescue this.
TJ?
Well, so Stephen A contends that he never even criticized Cari Champion. And so this is sort of those criticize one, criticize all type things. It's like, well, you've criticized black women, and so you've criticized me. I take that personally.
Jasmine Crockett, yeah.
Yes, and it's as though she said, well, I don't know. Basically what she's saying is, I don't ever see you criticizing liberal white women, as if liberal white women aren't the most criticized people on planet Earth because everyone hates them, okay? So everybody criticizes these people. Yes, no one likes them, okay? But I really have no sympathy for Stephen A. Smith at all. And it's because he's put himself in this position as being Mr. Pro-Black everything. And, well, no, I'm the one who puts women on air. I'm the one who puts black people on air. I have a special spot. And it's like, well, you can't. Nobody believes that you're honest if you only criticize people based on their color. And so he acts like that. And then when he tries to, because he's trying to be a centrist now, so that he can be politically viable. And now that's why he's Mr. Flip-flop, back and forth, because he wants to tell the truth. So he says, Jasmine Crockett's crazy and all whatever he says about her. And then immediately he goes back and says, well, no, I didn't mean that. Every time he says something, it's not pro-black enough. And so he has to go back. And even Cari Champion, right? If she were white, he would have gone in on her. But if you watch the whole 8-minute clip or whatever it was, he says, I'm going to let this one go for now. Why? Because you can't criticize black people when you pretend to be pro-black everything. And I'm Mr. Pro-black. So I don't have any sympathy at all. He did this to himself.
American black people love history and all the parts of history that portray them as a victim of white supremacy. But Stephen A. Smith and all these people need to go back and study world history and see if black unity over in Africa stopped other black people from capturing and enslaving other black people and selling them to Europeans. So this racial unity that you're looking for, that's going to be the magical cure, it's never existed. You build alliances based on shared values, same worldview, those type things. Building it on, hey, we're the same skin color, it's never worked. It's not going to work. It's not just the Crips and Bloods. It's all, you go back to the Zulu tribes of Africa 1,000 years ago. It just doesn't work. And it's stupid, unsophisticated. Just anyway, I'm gonna put a pin in it there because I got one more topic I want to get with you guys, and we got about 10, 12 minutes here I want to spend on this topic. People are upset with me because I pointed out Travis Hunter has had season-ending knee surgery. 6 games into his NFL career. He's been out for a couple of weeks. Now they've announced that he had the season-ending knee surgery. And I contend that Travis Hunter, your injury is inevitable in football. The longer you play, the more inevitable it is you're going to get hurt. The more snaps you play, the more inevitable it is you're going to get hurt. This man had no business going both ways at Jackson State and at the University of Colorado, and I believe he played 3 years of college football. And he had no business going both ways full-time throughout college. he was mismanaged by Deion. Now he gets to the NFL with this same belief that I can play both ways and I can block. And it's a stupid belief that eventually it's caught up to him. He's been injured. His rookie season has been a bust. I blame Deion Sanders. People are upset with blame the Jaguars. What's this got to do with Deion? I think it has everything to do with Deion. He, instead of mentoring, discipling, helping this young man understand and protecting him while he was in college. Like, hey, there's only so many snaps you can play a football. You're going to get hurt. We don't want to overuse you on both offense and defense. And we certainly don't want to plant this seed in your mind that you're a failure if you can't do this in the NFL. TJ, I'm going to start with you. Am I wrong for pointing a finger at Deion Sanders here?
Man, I hate to disagree with you, Jason, because we're pretty well in line on most things, but I totally disagree.
Go ahead.
I love that a guy loves football so much he wants to play both ways. I adore that. We are living in a time period where in the NBA you have to beg guys to go out and play. And everywhere we see people, professional athletes do not care about actually playing the sport that they're getting paid millions of dollars. And we talk about, caring about the fans. And it's like the fans wanted to see more of Travis Hunter. And for years and years, people played both ways. There's a guy even at Stanford, I think Owen Marichek's his name, played both ways the entire senior season. Was first team All-American as an all-purpose back. Didn't do it for 3 years, but he did it he was a fullback and a middle linebacker. You get beat up a whole lot more there than a corner where you never get touched and a wide receiver where you rarely get touched. And so guys have done it. I love it. And look, it may end up shorting his career. He may end up making less money. I adore that the guy loved football so much and is talented enough that he wanted to play both ways during this time period.
Hold for it. I mean, this sounds like, and I get it, what you love. I adore Ronald McDonald. Love him to death. BFF. I love it. Doesn't mean I should do it, though. Doesn't mean I should hit every McDonald's drive-thru. I get that you love it.
Well, look, if we're talking about what's healthy and what's not healthy, football's not healthy, right? If we're just saying, hey, football, we should just cancel football because people get concussions.
No.
Well, we're talking about what's healthy and what's not, right? And so
no, we're talking about limiting risk. We're talking about long-term future, long-term career. Hey, this kid probably has a goal of being in the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
It was his decision to do it.
Huh?
It was his decision to do it.
I got it. But someone helped him make that decision.
I don't think so. Somebody allowed him to make the decision. That's two totally different things. Encouraging somebody played both ways their whole life, and then what I think was the number one recruit in the country coming out of high school and had the ability to play both, and then somebody allowed him to do that. A lot of kids come in, by the way, saying, I want to play both ways, and are promised that they can. There's a lot of people. You can make the same argument for everybody that plays two sports, goes in and plays basketball right after playing football. And a lot of people do that, and they do it very successfully, or they used to at least. Because this is part of my problem. We've become, we have
too risk adverse is what you're arguing.
That is my argument exactly. That for years and years and years, everybody played both ways. For years in football. Now I get it; it was a different time period. People weren't as fast, weren't as strong. There is more risk, but I don't care about the risk. You don't sign up for football thinking about the risk.
Steve.
When he was at Colorado, every week, this is what you'd hear about Travis Hunter, how many catches, yards, if he had an interception, but also you hear about number of snaps. That became like a big part of his Heisman campaign. And you always heard 120, 125, 140. I wasn't hearing those big numbers, so I don't know if this is about usage, especially early on, first half of the season, right, Jason?
You talking about in Jacksonville or in college?
In Jacksonville.
Gotcha.
Was he playing 120 snaps a game in the NFL?
No,
I don't believe he was.
No.
But Jason, this is where I do agree with you. When I draft someone in the top 5, I want you to be good at least at one position. I want you to master. So if I'm drafting a wide receiver, I want a guy that I say that's going to be a number 1 wide receiver or a shutdown corner. With the way Travis Hunter came into the league, he was neither. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I could have drafted a Travis Hunter level wide receiver in the second round, and I could have got a cornerback like this in the third round. But I actually think where Deion or that whole staff shortchanged Travis a little bit is they didn't have him master one side of the ball where now you could lay a foundation and you're like, okay, you are worthy of playing every pick here or every play, and you're going to be good early on. I've said this before. If you look at Deion Sanders, who's kind of credited with being the last two-way player, that was in 1996. His rookie year was 89. So he had put in a lot of time as a prime-time number one cornerback. Him and Rod Woodson were considered the two best of the 90s, right? So he had already stacked up Pro Bowls in 91, 92, 93, and so on. So by the time 96 comes back, because Michael Irvin got into some offseason trouble, Dallas did not have Alvin Harper, and they said, okay, we need a wide receiver. Throughout those years, even in Atlanta, Jerry Glanville put in packages for Deion to be a wide receiver, maybe 3-4 plays every once in a while, but he was never full-time until his sixth or seventh year in the league. Jason, TJ, I believe it was a mistake for Jacksonville not to sit Travis down and say, Travis, you're going to master one position, and then we'll see how that goes if you ever want to play on the other side of the ball.
I'm around, Steve, great point, and I'm around the same age as Rod Woodson. You know, and Rod Woodson's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Rod Woodson went to Purdue, played for Leon Burtonette and Purdue. Ball State played against Purdue when I think Rod may have been a senior and I was a freshman. But Rod Woodson, more talented than Travis Hunter. And at one point, they had a shortage at running back, and Rod Woodson filled in at the running back position while at Purdue. This guy, Rod Woodson's one of the most he's right there with Deion and just built a thicker and all this other stuff. But there have been far more talented guys that could play both ways than Travis Hunter. And I think it was irresponsible for Deion not to counsel this young man that, hey, we need to be careful. You got a long NFL career ahead of you. Me playing you all these snaps here is not what's best for Travis Hunter. It's what's best for Travis Hunter's ego, and it's best for Deion's ego and maybe winning an extra game or two and helping Deion. But I just never thought it was in the best long-term interest of Travis Hunter. And when I look at running backs that try to limit their carries now in college football and they don't mind playing at a Georgia or somewhere because they get to share their workload, gives them more carries when they get to the NFL. I'm seeing coaches manage this. I get that it's fun and it's enjoyable and we may like it, but I don't think it's any different than me liking McDonald's. It's not what's best for me, and there needs to be an adult that says, hey, man, this isn't playing both ways all through college and then trying to force it in the NFL. There's extra practice reps. There's just more wear and tear on your body. I just think they've made a big mistake here, and Travis Hunter's not going to reach his potential as a pro football player.
Jason, I remember Rod Woodson reading a story in Sports Illustrated, and I think his senior year was 86. He played like 8 positions. Played running back, tight end, defensive back. He returned kicks, returned punts, and but all I remember in the pros, he was a cornerback, and he returned punts, and that's about it. Didn't even play. There was a guy at Tennessee who I loved, had a great pro career. His name was Carl Pickens. I'm sure you remember him. Great deep receiver. Early on in his career, Tennessee needed some safety help, and he ended up being like a nickelback, and he ended up picking passes off in bowl games. But by the time he got to his sophomore, junior year, you never saw him on defense. The Volunteers just said, you know what, you're going to play one side of the ball, and you're going to master it. But let me play Colorado advocate just for 1 second here. A large part of the Travis Hunter Heisman campaign was that he went both ways. And because of that, he has a nice shiny trophy that he can live with, right? And he's now a college football legend. Do you think, how much is that worth? Being a Heisman Trophy winner that you're going to be called that the rest of your life?
I don't want to peak at age 21. Go ahead, TJ.
Well, look, we have no, we're suggesting and forecasting perhaps that he didn't meet his potential. We have no idea what his potential was or is. Nobody does, right? First of all, he's he's 6 games into his career and he tore his LCL, right? It's not exactly a career-ending injury. LCL's on the outside of your knee, opposite your MCL. I've never heard of anybody tearing the LCL and suddenly they could never compete again. So whatever happened to striving for greatness, okay? Striving to be the best you can be. And so what you're saying is, oh, okay, so in order to do that, we need to sit out and we need to limit everything that we do. And what he's saying is, no, I'm great at all these things. I should try to be something nobody's been in 50 years. When was the last time, Deion wasn't a true two-way player. He was a one-way player who would go out and run 9 routes.
I'm saying this as a joke. This is a joke. But it's like the minister that I just saw that just announced he's got 2 wives because he can handle it. And I just saw this on the internet.
I realize it's a joke. That's not pushing for greatness. That's pushing for sin. All right. Pushing for again, Jason, why do we think we're so much better and so much more advanced than everybody who came before us? I don't buy it. I think to the degree that you're right, it's because we've set up an entire system that says we can't. Right? So all these injuries that we see, do we see less injuries today than we did before? I don't think so. I think we see more. Why is that? Part of it, bigger, stronger, faster, you can argue that. But part of it is we don't push our bodies in practice and other places to prevent those injuries. Your body gets used to doing certain things, and then you don't get hurt in the same way.
17-game schedule. Now they're playing 13, 14 games in college. There's year-round 7-on-7. There's just... We're doing a lot of things. The equipment, the grass that they're running on, the fake grass that they're running on, the helmets, the padding. It's just, I don't know. I have a bias against Deion Sanders. I think I was pretty consistent on this, that I was like, hey man, they're taking a real risk running this guy out here on both sides of football every single play basically in college, and lo and behold, 6 games into his NFL career, this guy's body starts to give out. He had an injury while in college, or maybe one at Jackson State, and then I know the kid from Colorado State put him down at some point. If you just look at his body type, to me, too thin to be trying to go both ways. I think Deion cursed him. It leans way to, and I think he's a great kid. I think he's a great young man. I think he could have been discipled a different direction. Played a little bit both ways. Still could have won the Heisman Trophy. I think when I look at him, I thought I saw a great cornerback. I thought I saw a better version. Like anybody, Steve, you remember Dale Carter, played with the Chiefs and the
Tennessee.
Yeah,
Carl
Dale
Pickens'
Carter.
teammate.
One of the greatest talents ever. I mean, great, but he loved drugs. He loved partying and all that, and so he didn't quite live up to his potential. But that's who I thought I saw in Travis Hunter. Let him play corner, let him return some kicks, and maybe occasionally throw him out there wide receiver. But it's not what they did. Anyway, I got to go because I got to get to Harmony early today. We got to go. Thank you so much. Great show. We'll play some tomorrow. And in 4 minutes at 11:21, we'll be on the Harmony channel. Play tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation, we all just wanna have freedom.